Okay, this is Mr. Ritter, and we are starting the introduction to Earth science. It's so exciting. And, I love everything about Earth science. I mean, there's just so many things that it covers and talks about, and that are within the realms of Earth science. And they're all exciting. And so, what I want to do is go ahead and get started and talk about the basics of what Earth science is. What we're going to look at is the four main branches and discuss the relationship between that and ecology. And I don't want to steal any thunder there. This is one of my favorites. So there are basically two main theories, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, when you think about the creation of Earth and you look at where kind of things are, you have the first thought, which is catastrophism. It's a biblical approach. Basically, says the Earth is about 4,000 years old. That everything was created in this one huge event, and what we see today is what's been there for 4,000 years, and so this is definitely one that really looks at the Earth from a religious point of view or a biblical point of view type thing. And then you have the law of uniformitarianism, or uniformitarianism is the scientific approach that Earth is about 4.5, 4.6 billion years old, and that processes change quite slowly. And when you think about it, if we look at different parts of the Earth and where they're at, we can start to paint a picture, and I won't steal the thunder from that. So yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Catastrophism and law or uniformitarianism, which we call the law of uniformitarianism. Okay, so if we talk about what Earth science is, it's the study of Earth and the universe. And so we break it down into a couple of different branches. So the first one that we talk about is geology. Geology is the study of structure, processes that shape the Earth and where they come from. When we talk about geology, we're talking about rocks and core and mantle and crust and so yeah, I mean it's the study of the structure. The next one we talk about is oceanography, and oceanography is simply the study of the Earth's oceans. Now, when we talk about that, one of the things that we think about is we go, okay, what is an ocean and what is not? Well, really, if you put it all together, we only have one ocean. They're all connected, whether it's a sea or it's a gulf. Doesn't really matter, but we break them down into the various areas by geographic location. And then you have meteorology, which is not the study of meteors, but it's the study of the atmosphere. And anytime that we have storms or calm days, or it's all the same. And so one thing I will say is that meteorologists, people who study Earth's atmosphere, they tend to get excited when it's a really catastrophe type day. They get pretty stoked up about that. And then you have astronomy, which is the study of the universe beyond. And I will say this, that I have this incredible love for all of these, but for astronomy. I have, as a little kid, I have always looked to the stars and learn my stars and my constellations, and really cool. I just, you think about back in the day when they didn't have TV and the internet and all these other things, and when the first person looked straight up and realized how incredibly small we are. I love them. I love it. So the what do we really look at? Well, the reason why we look at earth science is we get the understanding of what our earth is and what's going on. And ecology is the study of organisms with relationship to their environment. And when we talk about that, we're one of them. And it's abiotic and biotic factors, abiotic, non-living, biotic, living factors in relationship to each other. And so the first one that we look at is basically the geosphere, which is the crust, right? So we have two types of crust, oceanic and continental crust. Then we have the hydrosphere. The hydrosphere is wherever Earth's water is, right? And so that's pretty easy. Lakes, rivers, streams, oceans, ponds, those are all part of the hydrosphere. We have the atmosphere, which is, all of our gases, which, if you think about it, our main gas is not oxygen, right? We breathe oxygen. Really, our main gas is nitrogen, right? So 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen. And then you're left with this small amount that's all the rest. And so this just kind of puts things into perspective, right? So, and then our ecosystems. Our ecosystems are the organisms and where they live. And so it's a pretty cool thing when you think about all of these things working together to create this incredible place, this spaceship flying through outer space that's has all these organisms on it, and really it works unless something screws it up, which we have a tendency of doing. And then to put it all together, all life on Earth is within the biosphere. And so if you go, I think it's about like 8 kilometers below the Earth, which 8 kilometers is like 5 miles below the Earth, or straight down, or 8 miles or 8 kilometers or 5 miles above the Earth, right? So this is like really close to the tip of Mount Everest type thing, and so when you think about it, all life on Earth is within the biosphere. And we're just now learning quite a bit about like some of the deep ocean stuff, but without exception, on Earth, everything was within the biosphere. So when we talk about pollution, we're the only organism that does this. And we produce contamination with just about everything we do. I mean, I find it interesting that civilizations for eons, right? You find bits and pieces. They've always had some sort of pollution, whether it be pottery or whatever. Now, with the advent of the Industrial Revolution and burning things, we've taken it to a whole another level with water and air. But there's so many different ways. I remember when I was a little kid, the first impact, and I wouldn't say this is what made me an environmentalist and made me who I am, but it had a big impact on how I look at the world. And it was a public service announcement by Keep America Beautiful campaign, and is pretty interesting, and I'll tell you the backstory about this. Um, the 70s were really, 60s and 70s were a horrible time for littering and garbage, and something had to be done. And so the Keep America Beautiful campaign was trying to get people to take care of it. And unfortunately, they use this phrase, and I'll show you both of these. People start pollution, people can stop it. And it's the same thing over here. They were being fueled by the manufacturers to do that, so it wasn't put back on the manufacturers. People didn't pick up on that, unfortunately, but it did start an awareness, and this is what got to me. So that was the campaign from Keep America Beautiful, and you can imagine as a young child, I'm part Native American, and it resonated with me. I'm not a very big part Native American, but my cousins and I, when we were kids, this was something that we held on to, and when we saw that, we were deeply moved by it. The other day I was at the gas station, and this individual threw out a receipt and something when he was getting back into his car. And I pretended that I thought it just blew out of his car. I'm like, hey man, that just blew out of your car. Don't lose it. And he looked at me, and finally he got out of the car because he knew he'd been caught, but he didn't think I was smart enough to know. I'm like, there it is. It's underneath the car. Oh, it's a receipt. You might get somebody to steal your credit card number off it. Sure enough, he picked it up. And I'm sure he called me several things, including a jackwagon or whatever. But yeah, I still do those things, and that's probably because of that commercial. But that's kind of where I'm at, Okay, if we look at what biodegradable is, and when we think about the different products, biodegradable, compostable, it's when we can take waste products, break them down into a harmless substance, and make it to where it goes away and it doesn't hurt anything, and it gets made into other things. And that's where it becomes compostable. It becomes compostable by being able to use those products in other things. And so, like for me and my family, anything that's vegetable, we compost. It's biodegradable. It's broken down, and then we use it for our soil in our garden. The meat products usually don't last that long because my dog gets a hold of it and she consumes most of that, which she's pretty happy about. But yeah, so, and then recyclable is to reuse it. So I thought I'd show you this. What you guys need to also understand is your money has power, and what you buy can determine what happens. And so you really do hold the key to this stuff. All right. So if we look at protecting the environment, another thing that has been a big issue is ozone and the ozone layer. And some of you may have heard about this. Essentially, we are protected from ultraviolet radiation by our ozone layer. And basically what happens is the harmful ultraviolet radiation is reflected back out into outer space, or absorbed by the ozone. And so the problem is our ozone layer has been damaged. It's been damaged by stuff called chlorofluorocarbons, or HFCs, hydrofluorocarbons. And basically what happened was these molecules, which are basically used for propellants, they float up and they destroy molecules of ozone, which is 3 oxygens, right? So the air that we breathe is 2 oxygens that are bonded together with a double bond. And what ends up happening is we have ozone, which is 3 oxygens, not as stable. And so what happens is the chlorine molecule in chlorofluorocarbons, and it's chlorine and fluorine, and as it does, it's this molecule that breaks down and breaks the bonds in the ozone. And really what happens is the ozone becomes oxygen gas, and that single oxygen molecule is floating around and finding another single oxygen molecule, and then it binds and it forms oxygen gas. Well, that's okay for breathing, but it's not good for radiation. And so we put a ban on using chlorofluorocarbons, and now we're banning hydrofluorocarbons. But what we know is that as a result, and one chlorine molecule could break down hundreds of thousands of ozone molecules. So it was very potent. But what we found out is that by doing what we're doing, the ozone layer is repairing itself. And so it's working, and what we're doing is good. If here's the hole in the ozone layer, and I believe that was about 3 or 4 years ago. It's much smaller than that right now, but it's doing well. Now, one of the things, one of my favorite songs I want to play for you. It's just an inspirational song, and I wanted to play it. I don't know if it'll work here, but hopefully it will. And it's not that person's eyeball. Wow, well, I love it. Says it all. It says it all. All right. So what did we do? We talked about earth science, what it is, named the 4 main branches of earth science. We discussed the relationship between earth science and ecology. We listened to some good music. We talked about some awesome things. And I just want to say thank you for being awesome. Thank you for being amazing. And I hope you have a really good day.